everyone, hope your week went well. Continuing on with the XR75 series, this week we have metal forming and TIG welding on the exhaust. If you like the content, please click the like button, subscribe for my weekly videos, and drop a comment letting me know everything I did wrong. With that said, let's get to it. Outside of a art and metals class, I really don't have any experience doing this, but I just figured I'd give it a shot. So I got the anvil, or I guess train track, from a yard sale, and the big chunk of wood that it's all sitting on top of is from the family farm. I just used a towel instead of a sandbag because I wasn't sure if I could do this, so I didn't want to invest a bunch of money into a skill that I wouldn't be any good at. But in the future, I think I'm going to get myself a sandbag, probably some better hammers, and maybe try to find a used anvil or something that has more shape on it so I can get the different angles and stuff. While editing the video, I guess the one thing I learned is I should have put the workstation here right next to the exhaust. That way I wouldn't have to walk back and forth to test fit it. Basically, I just hammered on this chunk of metal until it was what I wanted. Really can't tell you any technique or anything like that. It's just something you really got to kind of get into and start doing and watching how the metal moves. There's this channel called RAC Garage. I guess he kind of inspired me to give this a shot. He does a whole bunch of metal work on old antique and classic cars. So it's kind of fun to watch, and I guess after watching him, I figured why not give it a try. It's a good channel. Check him out, RAC Garage. At first I was like, there is no way this is going to turn out, but I guess I just kind of lowered my expectations a little bit and kept trying and trying, and eventually it turned out to be a halfway decent job. One thing I found shocking was how hard you have to actually hit the metal to get it to start to deform and become the shape you want it. I mean, you really got to smack it. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but the train track there has a few different angles on it that I ground into it. When I got it at the yard sale, I noticed that somebody had welded a bead on one of the corners, and I just kind of continued on with what their inspiration, and added a 90-degree angle to one side. The other corners are just different round little shapes. And one thing that was surprising was how hard this stuff is. My grinder wheel, I had a really aggressive wheel on it, and it was barely taking any metal off at all. But after a while, I ended up getting a decent shape that I liked, and then I used like a 320 flap disc on it. Here I am checking the fitment. As you can see, it's kind of a diary of a madman here, putting marks all over this piece of metal. But it really kind of helps to kind of lay out the shape of what you want it to look like. Eventually I'm going to mount that train track to the log there, and I think I'm going to leave enough room for one of those, I don't know what you call them, sandbags or whatever, so it can kind of be just a nice little metal working station for doing whatever you got to do. Here we are testing fitment again. This is, I think, the point where I started to realize I had something. I should probably keep going. Like I said, just keep test fitting and hitting it until you want it to, until it looks like what you want it to be. Again, I don't know if you can tell from the video, but this is one of those aha moments for me. Started to realize what the metal was actually doing. And you can see here I'm throwing a line on it, and then I start to fold it over on that 90-degree angle. It's, like I said, just one of those aha moments that was kind of a game changer for me. Start to realize that the metal just sort of flows once you figure out the shape you want. And you just put it up against an angle that you want and you start to move it. And then it slowly becomes the shape you need. Here it is test fitting again. Looking a lot better here. Needs some trimming. In the end, I think I just ended up sanding it with 320. I wasn't really too worried about the metal finish because this is on the back side of the exhaust and it's up against the shock. That's what this relief is for, so that when the shock moves across the arc of the suspension, it doesn't hit the exhaust. But like I said, I just sort of finished it really quick with 320 and went with it because it was just going to get painted and, like I said, be on the inside of the exhaust. And all it needs to do is stay attached and not let the noise out. Yeah, all this walking back and forth, I could have saved a lot of time had I just moved that workstation over by the vise where I had the exhaust kind of chalked up. Here we are, almost finished, looking a lot better. Still a few adjustments yet to make, but it's actually starting to look like the exhaust, or the piece that it's going to be replacing. Here we are all clamped up, kind of learned from my body shop days, watching the body shop guys do their stuff. You got to have a lot of vice grips when it comes to metal work. Just sort of sharpening the edge here with a chisel and really getting it to fit nice and tight. Here we are scribing lines to cut it, getting a nice crisp line. I think I was shooting for the cutter disc distance between there to fill it with weld. I swear every garage sale and estate sale I go to, I make a line right to the garage and start looking for $1 vice grips and clamps and stuff. It's a good place to find really cheap tools that you don't really care about abusing, that still do the job. One final look here. Yep, I think it turned out halfway decent. Here we are making the cuts. I ended up with one little bobble here on the outlet side. Not really happy with that, but thankfully the weld just filled it right in. It did make for a little bit of trouble on when I was welding it. I remember that. I am absolutely not a welding expert, but one thing I do know is, for me at least, welding is 90% fitment. If you get good fitment, if you get a good space that the weld's going to fill in, if you get it just right, it makes it a heck of a lot easier when you don't have a lot of skill. Here we are on the opposite side. Somebody did a little bit of brazing here to fix this crack. I'm going to try tigging it up and make it look a little less nasty, like there's a big glob on there. Anyways, really surprised at how well this braze took to this metal. I probably could have just left it, but I felt a little better drilling out the end of the crack so it would stop, and then tigging it and doing a little bit of stress relief with a hammer and a dolly. Here we are, haven't welded in 2 years, but for some reason I'm expecting that I can remember everything I've forgotten. It starts off a little rocky, but slowly gets better and better. I probably should have done some practice welds before I got into this, but I just wanted to send it and get it done. You can tell from the video my skills are a bit lacking. It's been a while, like I said. Here I am sort of hammering, doing a little stress relief on the weld so it doesn't crack again. Also starting to realize that it's not going to look as good as I want to, so I grind a little bit of the weld off and just sort of fill in the little holes, make it look halfway decent, and give it a sand at the end, so once it's painted you don't really notice it. In the end, this isn't some Duesenberg grill that's going to sit in a museum. It's just an XR75 that I want to hop on, bomb down to the garden, pull some weeds, or maybe teach somebody to use a clutch on a motorcycle. Here we are, flipped over to the other side. Like I said, starts off a bit rocky, but slowly I change my welder settings and start to remember how to weld again. Pointing out again, you can never have enough vice grips when it comes to welding sheet metal. It's always nice to be able to just clamp things in place and get them where you want them. Here's that spot where I screwed up the cut coming back to bite me. Like I said, it's always fitment, for me at least, when it comes to getting a good solid weld. This is that spot where the cutting wheel kind of ground out a bigger spot. Here's my out of the free pile at a estate sale. I got a camera tripod. You can see me using it there to brace my hand against and keep my hand stable while I weld. Here we are doing a bit of trimming. Probably should have done that before I started. And then we start welding up the ends, or the flange, I guess. It used to be like a pounded over seam like you'd see on a door, but I didn't want to try. This metal was it's almost like spring steel, that if you bend it, it's going to crack. So I ended up just welding the seams on it. I know I keep saying this. I should have done some practice welds, but here's the last bead that I laid, and you can see I'm finally starting to figure it out. Imagine that. Moral of the story is do some practice welds before you get going. Your welds are going to look a heck of a lot better. Here's kind of some views of the finished product. Didn't turn out too bad. I'm happy with it. Ended up making a little vibration dampener to separate the movement in the exhaust from the motorcycle. Basically making it so it can move a little bit as it warms up or the motorcycle flexes. Here we are going to my parts bin, finding a little rubber washer to put in there. End up having to trim it a little bit. Here's the final product. Basically it just, like I said, separates the exhaust movement. Good old Rust-Oleum covering up all my sins. Nobody will ever know what happened. By the way, I absolutely love this vise. I think I've had it since I was like 6 or 7. In the next video, I end up actually changing out this rubber grommet setup. Didn't really like the how the rubber squeezed out once it was tightened down, so I end up changing it a bit in the next video. If you stuck with me till the end, just want to thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and throw a comment in down there. It really helps me with the algorithm. YouTube's been kind of weird trying to figure out this algorithm stuff. Last video, I think I got 1,500 views, and then the one before this one only got 250. So who knows? Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.